the day. SK Gaming versus Gambit, an important matchup. Probably you'd say more for Gambit than SK Gaming coming into this one after they, let's be honest, got thrashed yesterday by Roccat. They were not really involved in that game whatsoever. They kind of bowed out without really showing us any of the typical Gambit flair. Something tells me though, as it seems to be the recurring theme with Gambit, that they come back after a hard defeat so much better.
Well, we'll see if they can pull it off. They are without Alex, of course. So bouncing back from that hard defeat without your front man, without their old mid laner is going to be tough. So as far as the starts, very defensive across the board. Genja this time is actually sitting in the same bush that he tried to face check yesterday. And you'll notice that no blue wards, no blue trinkets, no red trinkets. So both of these teams not willing to give up anything or run the risk of getting caught out.
So there's one man waiting in the death bush, Svenskeren, who pretty much does that every single time. You'll see him sitting there inside of that brush. The ward did go down. They spotted that one actually coming into play. So SK Gaming really having a good time with that one, at least knowing where a little bit of Gambit's vision has gone down from the start of things. Eduard and Nick here also just hanging around off to the side. Gonna ward straight down there into the death brush on the bottom side of the river. Looks like it's going to be a fairly passive start once again. And
it does look like we're going to get straight up head-to-head matchups again. So Gambit yesterday went toe-to-toe with Roccat. They made some mistakes early, which cost them. They lost the laning phase and it just spiraled out of control from there. We need to be watching very heavily how these lanes play out. I feel like Genja and Eduard should be able to bully CandyPanda and nRated around, thanks to just the immense lane presence that a Lucian offers you. And I absolutely love the zone control that a support Gragas offers with those barrels. If you use them, to poke down the AD carry. Eduard did a great job of making Celeba's life difficult yesterday. So we'll keep our eyes on how this lane matchup plays out and who gets the early advantage.
And Gambit pushing that wave pretty early on in this one. See CandyPanda there, just using that tumble, which is leveled up here first to get out of the way of those barrels. And we see with that first wave down, Genja the one that's got a slight CS lead right from the very beginning. And as you mentioned, those barrels gonna be potent, always gonna be a factor. In fact, they've got a huge range to them, a huge area of explosion there that you really need to back away from. There's a belly slam coming in, barrel landing as well, and CandyPanda already down to half.
And this is exactly what Eduard did yesterday. He was able to give Genja an early CS advantage, but it never equated to anything more. Gambit didn't take a single tower off Roccat yesterday, not a single tower, and they had a Gragas and Caitlyn as their duo lane. So we need to see how it works out. We do see Nick already being jumped on.
Actually managing to get away, cute landing from Svenskeren there, but Diamond is starting to move. We did see, however, Nick using his flashes. Eduard gonna once again get the belly in there and slam it in against CandyPanda, who remains at just less than half HP. Diamond in the meantime doing what Diamond was always famed for, doing what Diamond does best, I think we can say. Trying to wait out there, actually managing to get it as well. Nicely done.
Smite stole, just stood outside of vision radius, so small advantage given there to Diamond. One thing I do want to note, that very point-blank body slam was actually not spell shielded by nRated, so we'll need to see how that works out. The one thing I want to note is obviously that spell shield will prevent the knock away from the explosive cast. So if nRated gives it to the likes of Jesiz or Freddy in the mid to late game team fights, they can really get in the thick of things and not be bothered by Eduard's displacement. So there is that element to the support Morgana pick that is obviously going to become absolutely invaluable. We'll see if Jesiz, I don't think he's in trouble. He doesn't really seem like he's pushing this wave super hard.
Yeah, he got flash as well if he should need that one. Diamond just stalking off to the side though, and we'll see if he can actually get too involved in this one. Jesiz actually going to hold back, puts down the wind wall. Here comes Diamond from the side. I think Jesiz is safe, as I said. Got flash available if needed. Actually just ends up burning through a pot there. No real imminent danger coming.
Lost a lot of hit points, so he's going to be able to farm underneath the tower. I want to mention a cute little interaction between a Kayle and a Yasuo. Yasuo's wind wall will block projectiles, things that are being fired. And when Kayle activates her Righteous Fury, the E, it does not count as a projectile. She is still considered a melee champion with a ranged champion's distance. So those Righteous Fury swings are not blocked by the wind wall. So that's why you'll notice when Jesiz got ganked earlier, he just took such a massive chunk of damage.
This top lane then being quiet up until now. Of course, Freddy playing the Aatrox against Darien on Irelia. That may change though. We have Svenskeren coming in, but Darien's all the way back on his turret already. This is going to have to be a dive if they want some action.
They have the ability. Because of the Blood Well on Aatrox, you can dive, tank up the turret, and have that sort of built-in GA to reset the aggro. I do want to note that we're seeing the same thing we seen yesterday. Aatrox winning early on against Irelia up until level 6. Genja takes a lot of damage, but this is scary.
A lot of damage coming in, but look at SK from that one. Eduard still up at around full HP, only Genja taking damage from Gambit's side, but both CandyPanda and nRated here are already low, and we've seen a couple of times Eduard, despite the sheer size of the Gragas, managing to dodge those bindings a couple of times, and actually Genja then was the one that caught him. Scumbag Eddie.
Yeah, Scumbag Eddie indeed. And just to finish that point on the top lane, it was the same story yesterday. Aatrox won early, and once the Irelia picked up a Trinity Force, was able to actually out-trade and 1v1 the Aatrox. We'll see if Darien can pull it off, but his mana pool's very low, so he's using it to keep up that hidden style, to use those Blade Surges. And of course, Freddy being mana-less means he's always going to be in a slightly stronger position when it comes to sustaining in lane.
This is very, very scary for SK Gaming. CandyPanda and nRated sticking around here for the farm. We do have Eduard on Ignite here, so that is definitely worth bearing in mind. Also bear in mind that Svenskeren is there on that top side. Look how low CandyPanda's gone from this one. One barrel would actually finish him off at this point, I think. In the end, though, they decided, okay, can't quite recall right underneath the turret when those barrels can come in. Gambit doing a good job of controlling this lane right now.
Very importantly, they're in absolute control. There's no doubt about it. Genja and Eduard are using that lane dominance that you expect from a Lucian against a Vayne. Darien can't even recall. In addition, Eduard's doing a good job with those barrels. It is probably my favorite thing about support Gragas is the zone and area of control that you offer. Because CandyPanda and nRated have to spend time dodging, Freddy's actually going, I thought he was going aggressive there. He's already used his Massacre just to sustain his lane. But we need to see Gambit. They need to either get the tower and then start rotating to push other towers and snowball that advantage further, or maybe it might open up an early dragon. If they can push CandyPanda and nRated away and pull Diamond to the Dragon Pit, they may be able to go for that as well.
While we're on that topic as well, just a note that both top laners do have the teleport, as is pretty standard by now. And there are the wards down. Actually, both supports seeing that the other had warded there, so they both know that they've both got vision of that dragon area, which may slow the things down somewhat. There is a teleport actually being used by Darien to get himself back into this top lane, picking up a chain vest, picking himself up also the health crystal and the long sword as well. So working his way slowly, or we should probably say a little bit slowlier than you may expect, towards the Trinity Force because of that chain vest.
Yeah, he needs to get some sort of defensive stats against that Aatrox. The other thing is, that chain vest is quadruply effective because there are 4 members of SK that have physical damage. Yeah. And yes, Morgana's AP damage, but come on, she's not a burst match. We're not expecting support Morgana to be blowing people up or popping them like we would expect from a Kayle. So we'll see how SK handles this all physical composition. Keep in mind, Vayne does have true damage, and Yasuo does have that armor penetration built into his ultimate. So there are some tools that they can make use of, but it is a ticking time bomb. By time multiple members of Gambit have Sunfire Capes, Thornmails, and Randian's Omens, it becomes so much more difficult to secure kills. So very, very important for SK to get a lead, and as we talked about, push and CandyPanda and nRated back, and it looks like Gambit have got great presence on this dragon.
They do, but that ward was down and Svenskeren is actually waiting, and we see already that Gambit decided, okay, maybe a little bit too risky for this one. Diamond at half HP. Actually, nRated going to take a lot of damage. Forced to use his flash, but it's CandyPanda they've gone for. He's going to go down. It's Eduard with the Ignite that picks that one up there for first blood. Now Nick having to go here at Jesiz. We see Svenskeren and Diamond going very, very low. In the end, it's Svenskeren that falls first. And just like that, Gambit pick up 2 kills. nRated was not on the same page as the rest of the team. Interestingly, Genja and Eduard didn't respond to the dragon instantly. They hung back in the lane, and they waited to rotate up. The moment CandyPanda and nRated had left, they became split up, and it allowed Genja and Eduard to split them apart, and the rest of SK came in from, odds and ends angles. They simply didn't stay grouped enough. So Gambit, with a very strong start to the game, grabbed themselves first blood, grabbed themselves a follow-up kill, and this is a much, much, much better 10 minutes than we've seen yesterday against Rockat. get 1 kill yesterday, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah.
So they've doubled that already after 10 minutes here against SK Gaming. Definitely a different start here for Gambit, that is for sure. And as we said before, you can never really count Gambit out, however horrible they look on the day before. That's just how Gambit have traditionally done things at pretty much every single tournament they've ever played.
Yes, and it was very important to note that Eduard and Genja had a level advantage over CandyPanda and nRated. Going into that fight, Eduard already had access to his ultimate, and nRated was on level 5. You know, so it was a good position for them to be in. They have taken advantage. I do want to remind everyone, SK Gaming's standard is to fall behind early and win the mid game thanks to their positional map play. So, you know, it is 1,200 gold at the moment. That's a dragon or a tower in the distant future. So we'll see how effectively they can get themselves objectives. Neither have been secured yet.
Edward once again catching their binding. See Diamond headed down towards his bottom lane as well. This could be a dangerous time for SK Gaming. Sweeping lens was switched over to actually by both support at this point of things, and there is the dragon going to be started off once again. Looks like they're going to go for a dive here on towards Diamond, on towards Darien. Sorry, it was Freddy that was tanking up the turret initially. Darien going low from this one. Freddy, is he going to get his Bloodwell pops? Actually won't. Will get out in time. They've done nicely there to pick up the kill, but in the meantime, Gambit just went straight to Dragon.
Yeah, and this is normal Gambit. Lose Darien, grab yourselves a dragon. The one thing that is important to note is SK were able to secure themselves their tower. So at the end of the day, I think you prefer SK's position. Now, CandyPanda may get knocked backwards. Let's see if the Black Shield is good, and it is.
There's no damage coming in, but no real control. However, Diamond once again headed down towards this bottom lane. The wave already pushing in Gambit's favor. That's going to go under the tower right now. The question is, will Diamond want to get involved in this one? Will they go for the kill? Pretty much answered there. Diamond starts to back away.
So the reason I feel that SK will be happy with a tower trade for Dragon is it opens Freddy up. He now has options. Does he want to go for counter jungling along with Svenskeren into Gambit's jungle? Does he want to try and push other waves? Does he just want to sit, plant some wards, and play the split pushing Aatrox that I'm somewhat expecting him to play? And if anyone ever responds to Freddy in that top lane trying to get that inner turret, it's going to open up the middle and the bottom turrets, maybe a dragon, SK to take control of. So the key now is for Gambit to make sure that whatever decision they commit to, it has to be swift, it has to be very quick. Because if Freddy buys enough time, SK could take another objective elsewhere on the map and close this goal.
Very, very aggressive bottom lane from Gambit. Not the traditional bottom lane style that we're really used to from the Russian side. If you look there at the CS, in fact, we'll forget that. No, we won't, because Nick's not in trouble. 111 to 66 CS down in the bottom lane. CandyPanda is miles behind Genja.
Yeah, and it's just the lane matchup. It really, really is in favor of both Genja and Eduard, and they've played it well. They haven't got the tower yet, but they will have the option to do that a little later. The one thing I want to see is how Genja transitions into this mid game. So it's been a while since we've seen Genja really dominate anybody, and in this setup, he's doing it correctly. We do see SK, they steal away that blue buff actually, so snuck that away from underneath Gambit's noses. A small advantage in their favor. One thing to note, there's not traditional knockups on the side of SK. You've obviously got Dragon's Rage kick, can activate the Yasuo ulti. You've obviously got the knockup from Aatrox, but you can also do it from a Vayne Condemn. If your reaction speed is quick enough and it's planned, you can condemn somebody, and while they're displaced, you can also activate that Yasuo ultimate. So there is possibilities for Jesiz to play. He's sort of even on CS with we haven't seen him blow anyone up yet.
So after that last blue buff was stolen away by SK Gaming, interestingly enough, Gambit going there for the steal. Actually, they gave it over to Diamond in the end. He smited that one away, so it's going to be no blue buff for Nick. Obviously, his opponent in that mid lane not going to have a blue buff either. There we see in this bottom lane once again how much trouble CandyPanda and nRated are really having down there. Eduard keeping them zoned out constantly until that wave eventually gets pushed up to them.
The question is, what does CandyPanda do now? Because he's so far behind in CS, once this tower falls down, SK will have the option to let the wave sort of push. I think CandyPanda may even want to try to freeze the lane. Oh, they're diving on Darien in top.
Oh, this is bad news for Darien. Will he get away? Oh!
Wow!
Wow, that was ridiculously close coming out there. The kick from Svenskeren thinking he'd got enough damage there to actually finish off. Turns out he didn't quite have the damage to finish him off. And that will be Darien escaping by the skin of his teeth, but they're going to get the tower nonetheless.
Okay, so at the end of the day, yes, they didn't get a kill, but they got something that is more valuable. The tower was secured. The bottom tower was also taken out for Gambit, and the minion wave is pretty substantial. So we'll see if Eduard and Genja can push it into the tower. This is a very smart move. Try force it to reset and reduce the amount of chance that CandyPanda has of controlling the tempo of that lane. CandyPanda is going to take a long time before he's enabled because he doesn't even have a Blade of the Ruined King yet, and now Nick is the one that's being dived on.
A little bit of trouble, however, Diamond is there with him. Wind wall actually coming down, knockup comes through. Actually, Darien going to get involved on this one. Jesiz down to half HP, Freddy at half as well, but of course he does have his blood well. Finally, Eduard coming along to support as well. They may have got them low enough here to actually have a good go on the tower.
That was a two-man knockup, but they didn't go. They caught Freddy.
Throwing Freddy back there. It's a blood well actually going to be popped. The question is, can they control him enough as he comes back up? And he can. It's Darien that gets the kill in the end. Culling comes out from Genja, and they take the turret as well.
Very smart play by Gambit. They were trying to set up a gank onto Jesiz to begin with. But as multiple members of SK flooded into the mid lane, Gambit were close enough to respond, grab themselves a kill, and also take the tower. A very good show of force. SK looked disjointed. If you go back to the Dragon fight very early on, they weren't on the same page. You go back to the mid lane fights a few moments ago, it felt like they were doing slightly different things, or it was just panic mode. They realized they'd bitten off more than they could chew, and they needed to get out.
Down some of the items here now. Genja is a country mile ahead of CandyPanda, as we were saying earlier on. Bloodthirster finished for him now with those Berserker Greaves as well. CandyPanda, of course, moving up towards that Blade of the Ruined King, but he is way, way, way off. 152, let's call it 100 CS here. That is a nice little lead that Genja, and I say little lead in the loosest of terms, because of course 50 CS is, well, a lot of CS in the end of it. Yeah,
it's about 2.5 kills worth of gold, roughly. And the one thing that's very important to note is that Jesiz has just hit his first spike. On his previous back, he completed both his static Shiv as well as his Berserker's Greave. So he's going to have a little more mobility and attack speed to move around the map. And that static Shiv is his first core item. If he decides to go towards the Infinity Edge next, he should be able to get to a 100% crit rate. Regardless, Dragon is respawned. Gambit secured the first one earlier in the game, thanks to pushing SK away. SK are a little out of place, but in a better position to start a fight. Freddy has teleport as well. Let's see if they go in.
Oh, Svenskeren throws out his Q. Gambit wisely just sitting back and waiting for that one, and done it perfectly there, Gambit. Nothing to really complain about from that one. Second Dragon of the game goes their way.
SK were timid. SK really hesitated in that situation. Freddy couldn't gain any further advantages in the top lane because both towers are down. He did manage to steal away the red buff, so, you know, all props to there. He's denied that resource, but now he's in trouble. He's got no blood well either, but he can just dark flight over the wall anyway, so difficult to catch that champion. Freddy now, I think, needs to try and maybe push other lanes. Maybe try and get to this mid lane tower down or bottom lane tower down. It does look like SK agree. They've stacked up 4 members in this mid lane, and CandyPanda will be alone in a side lane, I think, for a very long time. He needs a lot of CS before he's ready.
Yeah, long to be caught up on that one, and Gambit actually starting to move back towards this middle lane. SK, of course, have seen them coming up there, thanks to that ward just by the Dragon Pit, and that's going to be enough to actually force SK to just back away and alleviate some of that pressure that they were putting down onto the middle outer tower.
It's very important to note that Gambit have got a 4,000 gold lead, and they've got a composition that is more balanced than SK's. So Gambit's, not only have they got, you know, money in the bank more than SK Gaming, but they get more value from every piece of armor because it works against every single member of SK Gaming. So once we start seeing more of these armor items picked up for Gambit, that gold lead actually becomes even larger because of how effective it is against the entire SK Gaming team. So unless SK can really get something back in the next sort of 5 to 10 minutes, there is the possibility that Gambit can just run them down because they do have a much better mix of damage to burst through and deal with SK Gaming.
CandyPanda still farming as well, trying to get himself back close. 70 CS there. He's really, really struggling in that one, and it's going to take some time before he starts to ramp things up there. Yeah, that Blade of the Ruined King that I mentioned earlier that he's definitely working towards, still not being complete. In fact, Genja is pushed fairly far up the lane here, and they need to be a little bit careful about that. And we've seen before that Genja has been caught out in this kind of position where he's kind of got comfy in his position. He was pushed right up the lane. Now he's got Eduard with him though. Got a couple of wards down as well, but not really have much vision if Svenskeren actually came around there. They
don't, but I think what Eduard was trying to do was waiting to react to anybody diving on Genja. It actually looked like they wanted to try set up a fight. The one thing to note is, as far as levels is concerned, Genja has a 2-level advantage over CandyPanda because of all of that excessive CS lead. And there is a fair amount of burst potential. With the Gragas barrels and the Culling and Blade Thirster, he could be in trouble. We do see 2 members of SK, they're looking for a fight to Nick Jesiz.
Back Jesiz coming in there, slow. Connecting on towards Nick, but he's not having any problems with that one whatsoever. Nash's 2 for him, already done. Needs a large rod also picked up here. Svenskeren just getting rid of the pink ward down on the back of that Baron pit, which don't think Baron's going to be coming into play for this one. A fairly slow one in terms of the amount of kills and how fast the game is progressing in terms of towers as well.
It is, and I want to touch on that needlessly large rod that Nick picked up. Yesterday when we seen Kale, we seen the newer flavor build on Kale, where it was Nash's 2 into Brunon's Hurricane. And it's a combination of items that allows you to get a lot of damage to multiple targets. And of course, because the Hurricane applies onto the next, Kale's going to be able to get Lich Flame, the passive procs rather, to reduce armor and magic resist, so it gets even more damage over time. That's not the build Nick's gone with. He's going for more of the upfront burst damage. And I think it's a smart choice. If he gets caught out by a knock-up, a Lee Sin kick, a Yasuo kick, he may not get the time to get a multitude of auto attacks off. Eduard playing with fire, I think. There's 3 members about to collapse, and he may die here. Good flash.
Very good flash. Completely confusing SK game, and they were like, huh? Where did he go? And then now they're pushing down on towards nRated in the bottom. He's going to pop his ultimate. Freddy gets involved as well, but there's a lot of damage back on towards Freddy. Culling comes out, not going to be enough to pop the Bloodwell. And SK Gaming trying to move as many men down there as they can. This could be a big push from Gambit.
That was such a massive win for Gambit. They got the teleport from Freddy. They got flash and heal from CandyPanda. They got flash from nRated. And they burned all of SK's ultimates. So with Dragon being up in a minute and a half, Gambit are going to have the summoner spell advantage by, as you said, a country mile already, if they pick those engages. So that was very smart play. That just started with an opportunity. Just started with Eduard saying, well, let's see what we can do, let's see what we can, Diamond rather, saying, let's see if we can jump on them, and they managed to get all of those summoner spells blown, as well as those ultimates.
Well, just want to touch on Jesiz there as well, that Blade of the Rune King's second item, so going more the way that we've seen a few of the Korean Yasuo players going, rather than static shiv into the Infinity Edge and going full on crit and, you know, more damage in there. Going for that Blade of the Rune King gives him that bit more sustain and also chase ability as well, something that we can't ever forget.
Yeah, and his Q scales off attack speed as well, so it does synergize with his kit. It also gives him the ability to chase. Eddie's going to get kicked backwards, that's a dead fat man.
Yeah, he's not got his flash because he used that one earlier on. Actually, a lot of health coming back towards him and the intervention coming in as well. Don't ever say the fat man's dead before the fat man goes down.
That is the truth, and the explosive cost once again. Yesterday, it's what Eduard was doing over and over, and he would reset team fights. The Black Shield wasn't there to keep Jesiz in Eduard's face. It means he's going to get away with his life. So Dragon's up in 5 seconds. SK look like they want to challenge for this one. They are 4,000 gold down. CandyPanda's got a Blade of the Rune King, so if he comes up from the river, he will have the power to fight. But please take note, no Dragon's Rage, no Last Breath for Yasuo or Lee Sin. So again, SK behind on summoners, behind on key ultimates. I don't think they can pick this fight even if they wanted to.
Darien has come down from this one. Dragon is going to be started off by Gambit, and as you rightly pointed out, there's nothing here for SK in terms of the Dragon. They are, however, going towards this mid lane. Gambit might try and come around the back of them, though.
Yeah, I think SK could be in trouble if any CC lands. It doesn't look like Gambit can get an easy target, though. There's a very mobile team on SK, and because you can have a lot of people jumping over walls and dashing around, it's difficult to lock them down. The rest of Gambit, they found 3 SK.
And Diamond down to nRated. I'm not sure that he's going to escape. It's Eduard that actually picks up the kill in the end. There's the kick, but that's going to get Diamond over the wall with him. It's Nick in the end that blasts down Svenskeren. That's 2 kills for nothing here for Gambit and the tower.
SK Gaming tried to get a tower when they realized they couldn't challenge for Dragon. Because of the position that they were in, they ran the opposite direction and exposed their middle lane. Gambit, no hesitation, great calling, Great decision making there actually to shove them down, and they managed to grab 2 towers out of it as well as 2 kills. Very smart, decisive play from Gambit.
This is a completely different Gambit to what we saw yesterday here. CandyPanda actually recalling there behind enemy lines. Well, I mean, it's his jungle, but not really since Gambit have got all the towers down there. Let's have a look at this one once again. It's Diamond starting it off.
And it's just SK. They didn't have the information to work with. I mean, the minion wave had only just gotten to that portion of the map. So unfortunately for SK, they just got found out. You know, their route was too readable, and Gambit were in the right place at the right time. So very smart play from Gambit. They've got a very, very good lead. And I also like the fact that their team can tower dive. You can have Irelia or Evelynn forcing an objective and just use Gragas and Kayle to keep them alive if things go wrong, if things go a bit wonky. So very, very good comp to maintain control as long as Gambit don't give SK time. Because Vayne can become scary, Yasuo can become scary as well.
7,000 gold thereabouts, the lead that Gambit holding on to. 5-1 in kills as well, almost a mirror image of what happened to them against Rockout, although this is definitely not as one-sided as that game. Let's not pretend about that. SK actually trying to push back here and get themselves a third story of the game. They need to be careful though. Gambit's starting to come into the side there. It's going to be Freddy that's the initial target. A lot of damage coming his way. He's actually going to get his blood well popped, but getting away from it is probably not a possibility. nRated has also gone down, and now Freddy is on the run to try and escape this one up towards the enemy base. Meanwhile, SK taking a turret in the mid lane as well, and Freddy continues to run here. Very possible that he's going to get executed.
Yeah, I think the time is just quickly enough, and has it worked? It has! So denies a kill, allows the rest of his team to get a tower. Jesiz and Svenskeren can be collapsed upon. Here comes Diamond.
Diamond around the side. Genja actually getting knocked up there. That will stop his input on towards his fight, but Eduard also moving in from the side. He's got his ultimate available. Jesiz doing a lot of damage to Genja. The intervention coming around, and Jesiz now good knock up onto 2 people, but escaping from the Evelynn, pretty much impossible, and it is Diamond that gets the kill. In the meantime, Svenskeren went down as well. Jesiz has fallen. Freddy is down, of course, from the execute, and Gambit are going Baron.
Very, very smart play from Gambit. They managed to regroup, reposition, and grab themselves all of the kills. They're going to get the Baron uncontested, and a very smart pickup on the Kayle. That was a second round pick for Gambit after they'd seen the Yasuo. And we touched on how Yasuo is a counter to the likes of Nidalee, especially during the laning phase. But once you've got a burst assassin and a champion with intervention like Kayle, all of a sudden, Yasuo is going to be next to useless. He can't execute. All of the damage still applied, but he couldn't get the final blows, and that's what mattered. So Nick, with a very smart choice, and he's definitely showing up now in game 2. 3-0-2. He's done well in CS. He's got a lot of damage, opted to go for the Zhonya's Hourglass, so he's even got more survivability himself. And it's all Gambit. This game has really just been about them from the get-go.
And the Randuin's in there starting to pile up as well. One for Darien, one for Diamond. Already makes them so much harder to kill when you've got a full physical damage team here. SK Gaming have. Gambit start to push down this middle lane as well. Top lane's going to be pushed out by Nick, and he's going to be having himself a free turret. Nothing they can do to stop him on that front.
No, nothing at all. And now you've also got Nick that can split push quite effectively. Once he gets these Lich Bane completed, he's going to be able to just melt the towers as well. So, you know, smart optimization. The only armor penetration that's on the cards so far is with Jesiz. He's got the pickaxe and the longsword. You're a little bit before he gets that last whisper. But the rest of SK need to get some armor pen. Gonna lose another tower, as they don't want to pick a fight against a team with Baron and obviously a 10k gold.
Big gold lead. Sat on right now, towards that inhibitor turret here. Still dangerous for them though. They need to be a little bit careful of how deep they go. Darien looked like he's itching to get involved there.
Yes, as long as nRated is at the tower, I'm not sure Gambit will tower dive. You don't want to dive a Morgana with that Soul Shackles. It's a very, very powerful ultimate in that situation. So if nRated gets poked out, if nRated takes some burst damage maybe from Nick and leaves the area like he does now, that's going to allow Gambit to tower dive. Smart play by Diamond. Force SK to react, leave that top lane. Obviously there's no minions to work with either, so let's see if Gambit can force SK into a fight.
Well, they're going to force him to give up an inhibitor. That's one thing for them at least. So they move back around on towards this top lane. Pink ward going to be taken as well. Trying to keep vision of Diamond on Evelynn. We can see pretty much pushing that one alone. Darien in the middle of the team. Where's the rest of the team though? Gambit not even close to being involved in that one, but they've managed to force them back. nRated going to get knocked back through, and it's Nick that picks up the kill. He's now on a rampage at 4-0-2, and this is going to be a second inning turret. There's
no doubt about it. Without that Soul Shackles to threaten Gambit and maybe disperse them, there's nothing SK can do. You have to give props to Genja. He was about to get condemned in the wall and actually flashed over it. While flying from that condemn, he managed to get away from the wall. Had he been stunned, that could have allowed a knock-up to land in place, and then obviously Yasuo to jump in, but it didn't happen. Gambit grabbed themselves 2 inhibitors from that last trade. Baron is just about to wear off, and my word is Gambit rich. 3,000 gold for Nick, 3,000 gold for Genja. They're just going to spend that and just get even further.
Come back in all the more powerful from this on. See what items actually do end up being purchased. The Sunfire Cake picks up there for Diamond on Evelynn. We see a dragon going down as well. Lich Bane was finished off by Nick as well, and well, they've taken the dragon with Nick. He's got even more gold to spend when he goes back here in just a second. Instant recalls from everyone from Gambit.
So just to list the items that have been completed, you mentioned Nick with the Lich Bane. Thornmail completed for Irelia. Randian's Omen completed for Eduard on Gragas. Genja's grabbed himself an Infinity Edge. So just listing a few small, insignificant items that Gambit have put together. And, you know, they already were miles and miles ahead. That is the tools that they need now to force down the last inner turret. And I'm expecting them to just group bottom lane, wait for super minions to get in the middle of the top, and look to land the killing blow against SK Gaming.
Well, in that last fight inside of the base, if you can even really call it a fight, it was just Darien having fun pretty much around the entire team. He didn't really take all that much damage. I thought he's miles away from the rest of the team. He's surely going to get caught out. Well, not really what happened, to be honest. He survived long enough there for them to mop up a couple of kills. And now he's got himself that 4-mail as well, makes it a lot more difficult to take him down. Look at that statistic, 0.14 KDA versus Roccat yesterday, a 32 KDA versus SK today. Night and day for Gambit.
That is fantastic, and Gambit deserve it. I mean, from the very first few ganks that we've seen from them, they've pushed the objectives correctly. It looks like they're playing the game today. Yesterday they really didn't. So, tower's down. It looks like they're going to force a fight. Super minions on the Nexus.
Going on towards CandyPanda. Actually, Genja going to take a lot of damage here and will be able to go down. It's CandyPanda that gets that kill. Nick also taking a lot of damage from this one. He will end up falling. Diamond going to go low. SK Gaming managing to pick up 3 kills here. It's going to be 4 as well. Edward won't get away from this one. A double for Jesiz. But look at the base. The super minion have taken down both Nexus turrets.
And they're going to be able to put some damage down as well. At the end of the day, Gambit simply just got a little spread up. There was a good ultimate from Jesiz in and amongst the fight, and we touched on the fact that there is a ticking time bomb. Vayne is eventually going to get scary. There is damage in multiple sources for SK. Gambit didn't blow somebody up. They didn't pop anyone, and that was the key in that fight. Unfortunately for Gambit, a little overzealous, I feel. But at the end of the day, SK holding on by the absolute skin of their teeth. They have no turrets left. The one I want to look at is Nick very, very quickly. Genja gets caught out. He's the only target of the last breath. But then the following knockup is key. Genja's about to get focused up fairly quickly on. He doesn't get many auto attacks off. And once the intervention as well as Hourglass wear off, SK are very tightly grouped. There's no focus from Gambit. I mean, this is such a sloppy fight. And if you look at SK, there are 4 blue health bars around the threats of Gambit the entirety of that fight. And it just boils down to poor targeting in team fights, which you can possibly credit to maybe being less experienced as a team. Hell, I'm going to go a step further. Maybe whatever they were calling, they weren't on the same page. You know, Nick, we don't know how fluent he is in Russian yet, if at all. So, poor team fight for Gambit.
But maybe too far ahead for that team fight to have an overall impact, I think, maybe on this game. 11-4 up in turrets, 62 to 50,000 gold, and Baron is coming into play here. SK Gaming pushing up that middle wave. Are they going to go for a bit of a positional play on this one? Go up towards it as Eduard going to get involved. They've managed to single out Freddy here. Does have his blood well available. And Jesiz actually going to pick himself up a kill. This could be real bad news for Gambit once again. Ultimate goes down from Morgana. Darien is going to die. Eduard off to the side will be finished off by CandyPanda. And again, it's 3 kills coming in for SK Gaming.
Nick got killed before he could use intervention. There are no super minions to deal with, so SK are going to grab free reign on the Baron. It doesn't look like Diamond is going to be able to get to the challenge, and even if he does, this is going to be a god-like steal. SK Gaming with Baron can defend. SK Gaming with Baron, the value that it gives you in stats will make that 10,000 gold difference significantly less. So all of a sudden, SK can. That was the team fight that has given SK a last attempt at life, and we'll need to see if they can play perfectly. There is no room for error. Look at Nick. Focus very, very carefully on Nick. Freddy gets closer, gets the knock-up, and an instant reaction from Jesiz. Nick goes down before he can hourglass, before he can intervention. And because Bloodwell was up, Freddy's just like, hey, cool beans, I'll respawn. Soul Shackles has just stunned you because you're all in my face, and they clean up house. Very good team fight, a very good reaction from SK to just realize, look, we have to all in, or it's going to go badly.
Genja was out of the fight anyway from the beginning, but Svenskeren took him even further out there, just going straight for him, forced him to back away towards his own jungle, and meant that wasn't really a factor in that one. So very, very interesting turn of events. It's 9-8 in kills, still a big gold lead here for Gambit, although that has now come back to below a 10,000 gold lead. So I've cast enough Gambit games in my life to never call a game over before it's over.
Yes, that's the truth. But SK now have, I think, the confidence and the gold value that they need to actually be relevant. Now we've got an even fight in our hands. Up until that previous Baron, Gambit had a significant lead, obviously. The key to these team fights is going to hinge entirely on which team can blow up their opposition's, I think, 80 carry first. If Genja is given time and free reign to get multiple auto attacks off, get protected by intervention, and allow Eduard to disperse SK Gaming, he can kill multiple members. Same story for CandyPanda. If CandyPanda is given time to get those auto attacks off, he can kill his opponents. So let's keep our eyes on Nick's interventions and his hourglass usage, because that previous fight would have been very different if he'd come back. Would have been very different if he'd actually managed to cast a couple of spells.
For SK Gaming, nothing that Gambit can do about this one. That's going to bring the gold total a little bit closer, and of course everyone nearing 6 items at this point outside of the support, so that gold total is going to be becoming less and less important in the overall factor when it comes to these team fights. And CandyPanda, we talked about him ramping up, still miles behind in CS. That's kind of been the theme of this game for him so far, but he's got himself Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruin King, got a Brutalizer as well, so a little bit of a different build that we're seeing here from CandyPanda.
We talked about armor penetration and how he needed to get his hands on some.
Yeah.
Brutalizer is actually going to be quite good for the CDR, for his tumbles, for his ultimate as well. But what I quite like is if he does actually upgrade that to the likes of a Black Cleaver, the armor shred will allow the rest of his team to do more damage as well. So there are ways to mitigate some of the armor on Gambit, but there is still a lot of armor to burn through. So there is no room for error, I would say, for both of these teams. At 40 minutes in the game, with so many auto attack based champions, towers and inhibitors will just get melted. So neither team can afford to get caught out or blown up before a real fight can break out.
Going to make sure that this top wave doesn't do too much damage on towards the tower. They're going to go in for Eduard here. A lot of damage coming his way. Darien in the middle. Intervention used. Nick at the back just hammering away. Jesiz forced away. Svenskeren's going to go down here surely. Great flash away over the top of the wall from him. The Culling won't do too much damage there towards Freddy. SK disengaged. Didn't lose a man either.
That was a bit overzealous from the side of SK Gaming. They tried to force a tower dive, and all credit to Svenskeren. His Dragon Rage actually knocked up Darien during the course of the fight. Kicked Eduard back, they got 2 members of Gambit up in the air, and Jesiz came in there. But underneath the tower, with the power of intervention, they couldn't actually secure the kill. So, good attempt, but I think SK managed to get away quite cleanly. Look at this. Eduard's about to get kicked up, knocks up Darien actually as well, and that was a very nice timing on that last breath from Jesiz. But as we said, underneath the tower, nRated tanking as best as possible. because there was no insta-gib, the team fight is not gonna work out. The front line of SK wasn't there. Freddy was very late to the party. He was only making his way up from that middle lane towards the end of the engagement. So, good attempt, and I actually think lucky that no one in SK died because it was very deep.
Steps to avoid that in the future here as well. 2 GAs picked up, 1 for Freddy. Basically means he's got 2 GAs. He's got 3 lives now with that Bloodwell in there as well. Svenskeren, the second man to pick himself up a Guardian Angel. CandyPanda actually turning that Brutalizer into the Black Cleaver there. In the end, is Genja actually going to get binded up, but in the end, it's Gambit that are going aggressive from this one. Looks like they want to have a good go at Freddy. Still has that GA, still has his Bloodwell as they go towards Diamond. Binding will land, but I don't think SK really want to be a part of this fight. They're going to back off again.
SK are backing away. It's actually interesting to see those GAs because SK needs more time to burn through all of the armor of Gambit. Because each of their auto attacks will be mitigated by all of the itemization on Gambit, the ability to respawn and come back is going to be very important. But what SK need to do is, if someone goes down with that GA, they have to cluster around their teammates and make sure that when he respawns, they can continue the fight on that corpse or on that location. If SK bail away and run back like we've seen in both of the previous engagements, Gambit are just going to stay clustered, use Eduard's explosive cost to displace SK and kill the target. So there's a lot of importance for SK to remain grouped. They can't afford to split up.
Also has come back down to 7,000 here, so just showing you the swing that SK have managed to pick up in this match. Again, the tug of war basically in this mid lane as Darien going to take a lot of damage. CandyPanda needs to be careful how far forward he goes. He's not the person that they want to lose at the start of a fight.
Definitely not. And if SK had towers to play with, I think they could have even gone for a split push strategy. They could have gone, you know, pull Gambit apart, try and make them come to us. But because SK have got nothing to work with, they don't even have Nexus turrets. If they are out of position for any period of time, they are at the risk of being backdoored. Very important, in that previous fight in that mid lane in a turret, Darien used his teleport. So what that means is, if Gambit do get some deep vision, the risk or the play of going for that backdoor inhibitor is not available to them. So SK have got a small timing, a small window of opportunity where they're reprieve, where they're safe from that type of move. Although I don't really associate with Gambit, to be fair, either.
No, not particularly.
They want to team fight and then win the game that way. More likely than not.
I think that's more likely the scenario from that one. Second Thornmail actually in there for Gambit as well now with Evelynn. The first Guardian Angel on their side actually been picked up by Genja. So a lot more survivability added in for the AD carry. This could be interesting now. Moving up towards the Baron. Another GA picked up here for Jesiz. So we're at that stage of the game where the team fight is basically the last half a day.
There's a very scary fight in this Baron pit. Oh, we may see a repeat. If there are multiple targets knocked up by SK, there's nothing you can do to mitigate that. They're starting the fight.
Freddy's starting to fight, but he's starting to fight on his own. The rest of the team not really coming in. Barrel comes out from Eddie to knock everyone else away. They're doing some good damage here, and there is the ultimate out of nRated. Is he going to fall? No, the knockup comes in. Eddie's going to take a lot of damage. First kill going over towards Gambit. Well, there's one back on towards Nick. Well, this is good work from Gambit. They're going to get the GA out of Svenskeren. They're going to pick up the kill, possibly. No, Freddy's still doing damage, and there's a double kill for Jesiz. He still has a Guardian Angel available. In the end, as I said, half a day long fight. It's SK that come out on top.
It could have been so much better if Jesiz had hit more people with that last breath. It was not the strongest. I'm hoping we get a replay because I think he only caught Eduard at the beginning of the fight. Because of all of the survives and the revives for those GAs, that fight went on for an eternity. Baron's being secured, so what I need to keep my eyes on now is Jesiz and his last breath. We'll have to see how it plays out. We do see that Freddy, as you highlighted, Joe, is going to be in trouble. Oh, they're going for Baron.
Oh, they're going for Baron. It's very low. Actually, Darien coming in. Jesiz going to get his Guardian Angel pop. They're leaving Genja alone here, and Genja is hammering away at him. Svenskeren's come back towards the Baron, but is he going to go down? Baron is going to be picked up by SK, but they've been aced.
That can be game. nRated is up. It's going to be up to nRated and CandyPanda to defend against Genja and Darien. If they go for the inhibitor, there is some time to play with. It looks like Genja and Darien are making a beeline for that mid lane inhibitor while nRated is wave clearing on the bottom. CandyPanda, you need to run, my friend, because this is a scary position to be in. I think wise play from Gambit.
Oh, he's managed to land the bind in there. Darien's a dead man here, surely. Kill is picked up by CandyPanda, and now they go towards Genja. He's going to get his GA pop. First of all,
Eventually!
What? Why did that take so long for them there in the end? There he comes back up and Genja,
He's alive!
Last second intervention! He survives it. There's still 20 seconds on the 3 men from SK.
That's going to be an inhibitor. Gambit have got enough members in this mid lane now to grab themselves an inhibitor, and if they want to commit, they should be able to get the Nexus as well. Nick is moving. CandyPanda's dead!
Oh, he's dead. That surely is Gaming and Gambit going to go in for it. Massive win for Gambit. It took them a while. SK gave them